Hello, kia ora, and g'day guys. Thanks so much for tuning back in. It is really appreciated every time somebody watches this. Thank you very much. So, it's been a year since I've been out for sale on Tiare and hoisted up the sails, etc. And I must admit, this sail did not go well at all. In fact, it went quite badly. Fortunately for you guys, there was a film director and a fellow YouTuber on board who documented everything that went wrong. So what I was hoping for, and what was actually forecast, was a similar sail to last year. So it was 8 knots or so, I guess, 2 or 3 hours total sail. We had someone on board who had to be back for a meeting, and so last year's sail would have been a fairly good expectation for me of what I was getting into and what I could expect to happen. The day started well. We had crew on board, we had new crew, and we went through the safety briefing, which is pretty much one hand for the boat, keep one foot on the wooden slats, and listen to your captain, listen to your first mate, please, and that the starboard tramp was out of commission, and please don't use that. Other than that, wear your life jackets when you're out of the cockpit, and let's go and have some fun. It's going to be a 2 or 3 hour trip at the most. We're going to go out, we're going to go around the island and come back, basically a circle around the island. That was the plan anyway. But we motored out to a headland where we could raise the sails, just a bay before we head out from there, before we raise the main sails up. The 2 sails we put up were 2 jibs. Now at this stage I hadn't realised that I didn't have the correct main jib up, or the genoa up. A genoa is just a very large jib. I hadn't realised, it didn't click in my mind for some reason at this great big blank area that I had the genoa up, even though it's obviously not a genoa. I thought I had a genoa up. So off, we raised it up. That was fine. Unfortunately at this stage I'd also forgotten where my sheets, which are the bits of string, the ropes that run between the bottom of the sail and head towards the winches, I had forgotten which way my sheets were supposed to run. So down came the sails, swapped the sheets around, up, raised the sails again. So we'd put the 2 jibs up, we'd re-put the 2 jibs up, rearrange the sheets, and we headed out. As soon as we cleared the headland, it was obvious that 8 knots didn't exist. It was 15 plus knots. Well, it was 15 constant, and we go up a couple of knots for the gusts, but the sea states were absolutely beautiful, relatively calm. In fact, it was an absolutely beautiful day for sailing. Now Tiare has a range of wind speeds where you are suggested you should start reefing down. Her first reef kicks in at around about 30 knots, just slightly over 30 knots is when we put the first reef in. The second reef comes in at 35 knots, and then the third reef comes in, or the storm rig comes in at 60 knots. So she's a very capable sailing boat. So 15 knots should have been no problem whatsoever. But because we had a particular issue, it meant that we weren't able to do this. So the issue was both the forestays were super loose. They're just really bendy and wobbly, and this is not an issue with my Dyneema rigging. What I've made up. It's the fact that my what are they called, double braid loops that hold the rigging onto the boat have become loose over time, which is what they do. I'm supposed to pre-stretch it, and I think I did a bit, but not enough. So I need to retighten my lashings on my rigging, which is fine, but I hadn't done that before I left, which is not fine. So as you can see, the forestays are basically bent like a banana, and this has the effect of I can't get a nice sail shape, which also means that the wind flow over the sails is very bad. So the wind flow interferes with its own sail, and it interferes with the sail behind it, in front of it, and so you just don't get any power out of the sail at all. A bit of a disaster in this case. No power, and I couldn't head into the wind, so we just had to sail back the way we came out. I hadn't checked the autopilot correctly, that it was correctly disengaged, so she could turn to starboard, which is what we did to get out here, but she couldn't turn to port, and we needed to turn to port to turn around to make this jibe, this controlled jibe. And I had Lowell on the helming at the stage, and she couldn't go, and she said, I can't turn to port, and I'm saying, oh sure you can, shall I force it? And I'm saying, no, don't force it, there must be a reason. So I'm looking around to find out where the tiller's jammed, and it's not, or the rudders are jammed. They're not jammed anywhere. What had happened was that the belt for the autopilot was got stuck. And yeah, after a little bit of trial and error, Lola looked down and saw the problem, and ta-da, here it is. And there we go. We could turn around, and we did. We turned around, we did the controlled jibe, and we went off back the way we came. That was much nicer because suddenly the wind. One of the other issues was I wasn't communicating clearly to the crew, which is my own fault. I should have been doing a lot more, being more precise in what I wanted. But one of the obvious things was I wasn't ensuring that when the lines were pulled down or the halyards were down, they weren't being cleaned up afterwards. So there's a big pile of rope on the bottom, and this is kind of okay because when as it comes down, it goes up. It doesn't get into a knot and things. But with people standing all over them and walking around them, they become a big mess. And so it was really important that I should have just said, "Hey, look, we need to, put these to one side so we're not sort of trampling over them." Tiare was not looking her best. Ropes everywhere, the sails were all over the place. So we attempted to put the main up, but combined with the loose rigging and the chaos of the ropes everywhere, got halfway up and I just said, no, this is not going to be worth it. It's I just don't trust it. Things are not going to go bad at the stage. So we pulled it down, and I made the mistake of not securing that sail immediately as I pulled it down, and it ended up billowing out. Not dangerous, nothing to worry about, but it did make it just made the whole thing look even more chaotic than it should have been. It just made it look messy, very unprofessional. However, we did finally manage to get the sails up, the two mains up, the two jibs up. We got more sailing. She was sailing beautifully. The wind had changed slightly at this stage, so it was more beam on rather than sort of on the forward half. And she was a steady 12 knots coming over the deck, and she was up to 9 knots, constant at 9 knots, which is really nice. So there's a few lessons to learn here, plus the fact that I still have a fair bit more to do on Tiare, particularly rigging wise, before she's ready for any sort of hard sailing. Particularly next year when I start going around Japan, it's not going to be smooth. There'll be times when it's going to get quite rough, and so I need to know that she's 100% going to be okay. And I think by then, this sail was a really good example. So yeah, one of the really great things that came out today, really positive, was that Lowell Shepherd from Pacific Solo came up and said, "Hey, thanks for today. I feel so much more confident in my own abilities after watching you sail Tiare." So the last part of any sailing trip is putting all the sails away, tightening up the ropes, really looking for any, it's a good chance to look for any wear and tear and what needs replacing. And certainly on Tiare, because I hadn't been sailing for so long and the blocks have been left out and all the covers have been left out, the halyards have been coiled up on deck, everything had got really tight and really stiff, which meant it was very tight to use any of the halyards and that, all the pulleys, the blocks. So that's something I've got to do. I've got to lubricate everything, oil up the leathers, and give the halyards a good bath. Actually, I'm going to replace most of the halyards anyway, so they'll be new. But the ones I don't replace, I need to give them a good soak. Right, it's going to be question time. I'm going to turn the camera around. Question time it is. Righto, so this is a number of questions that I've had over the last few months on my comments on my YouTube channel. If you do have any questions of your own that could be about Japan or sailing in general, just anything really, I'm happy to have an opinion on most things, so just ask me a question and I'll do my best to answer it. Just leave a comment and I'll see if I can put it up here. Righto, so this is from Tismon, about a month ago or so. He's saying that it's natural for foreigners to think that Japan is out of oceanic reach since, I guess it really is off the cruising guide. I guess not many boats come up here. You probably get maybe 5 or 7 sailboats a year on average, and some of those are repeats. It is out of the radar of most sailors, which is a shame because it doesn't have to be. It is such an easy place to get to. You pretty much stay sailing all the way up until you get to the top of the Philippines, and then you got a 24 or a 36 either to the bottom of Taiwan or to Ishigaki, and it is really easy to get here comparatively to ocean crossings. So yeah, please come visit us, come visit me, say hello. Would love to see you here. He also goes on to ask is that the first thing he thinks about when sailing in the area is that people say that the seas surrounding Japan are difficult to sail. Are they difficult to sail? They're difficult in terms of it's not your trade winds sailing like you might get in the Caribbean or somewhere where you've got a seasonal, you pretty much got a constant wind in one direction all the time. It's not like that at all. It's like it is anywhere and outside the tropics. You've got local weather patterns coming across from the continents or from Pacific coming up or down, depending on where you are. And so you have got more challenging sail conditions, but they're pretty normal if you're if you're used to sort of sailing up, New Zealand, Australia, or Canada, or the top end of the States, or Europe. That's no more challenging than around there, I don't think. Right, and his last question was, the second is vessel operating license requirements that are here is strict in Japan. Should we worry about these? If you're coming in on your own boat, it's not Japanese registered and you're not Japanese, then you have no worries at all. They're only strict if you want to sail a Japanese registered boat here or you are a Japanese. Other than that, no requirements are required. You can sail on what you like here as long as you meet those requirements. Jordan O says, thanks for the update. I'm very interested in the maintenance side of Wharrams. Keen to know how you keep her in such good shape. Also wondering, how do you get the power wash going? Were you on a dock? Well, yes, I was on a dock for the power wash. I know that there are power washers that you can just put into a bucket and you can wash the boat that way. And I think the Karcher K5 series have that ability. It would be very useful to have. Being able to put a couple of buckets here and just power wash your deck from a bucket would be wonderful. I often think that'd be a good way to go from when I beach the boat to do another brand new anti-foul. You can't clean it with salt water, you have to use fresh water, so yeah, having something like that would be a really good idea. And how do you keep her in shape? Well, unfortunately Tiare is looking a bit tired at the moment because I've been away for so long, but like any boat, the way you keep them in shape is keeping on top of it and just elbow grease. It's just a time thing, and if you're living on the boat, it's something you're going to do naturally anyway, so yeah, it's not generally a problem. From Datong Suryo, I think that's how your name goes. Good afternoon, nice sailing boat. How are you, may I ask? Well, you may ask, and I'm very fine, thank you. Where is the sailing boat made? The sailing boat Tiare was made in Surabaya in Indonesia. It was made at the PT military yards there because they have the experience in the double diagonal hull forms. So, but there's a whole big story behind the build of Tiare. It would make for its own video, which I should probably do at some time. It's really interesting. John Harrison says, travelling more or just sticking to the Japan area? The horizon is vast. Yo, John, yeah, it is vast, and yes, I will be sticking to Japan for a wee while yet. There's a few things I need to do here in terms of sailing. That's starting from next year. I've probably got at least 2 or 3 years of sailing around here because that's the project I want to accomplish during that time. After that, I would love to sail. I really want to visit the Caribbean. I've done the whole of Southeast Asia. I'm not that interested in that anymore, though it is a great place to cruise. I would love to travel. I'd love to go and visit Madagascar, South Africa. We've got friends down there I'd love to go and visit, and then across to Brazil, we've got friends there, and then up from the Caribbean. Would I like to go then up to the Med? Maybe. We'll see how we go. I'm not sure yet. I would love to. It sounds very expensive. I'm not sure. We'll see how we go. And then, yeah, I'd love to go across the Pacific, and I'd love to sail into Nelson, New Zealand, my hometown. I think that'd be a wonderful thing to do. But that's not going to happen for a few years because I need to do this Japan thing. So, anyway, so yes, thanks for the comment, and yeah, it's a good question. I'm still planning that at the moment. So, thanks, John. Simon Handler says, cool bananas. Yes, indeed. What design was that aluminium boat? He's referring to the boat I did maintenance on, delivered over to Busan a few months ago. That was an aluminium, and I think that was a Chris Dixon 59 design. Lovely boat, lovely design. I really like aluminium as a yacht build material. Good for you. I'm ambivalent towards it. After spending all this time doing all the paint repairs on it, I'm kind of leaning more towards what I have, or a glass boat, fiberglass boat. Did they sail it up through the Aleutians? Yes, they did. It's winter back here in New Zealand. It sucks. I agree. New Zealand winters suck. Don't like them. And I've just finished my year-long refit on a lid guard, ready for summer. They're wear wet there, which is Maori for freedom. Yeah, the lid guard is a very famous New Zealand yacht designer, builder, been around for generations. Excellent boat. I'd love to see some photos if you want to share those. Be really good. Thanks, Simon. If you can send them through, I'd love to see some of them. Wear wet there. Lovely name too. Good to see you back in boat renos. I see you've got an Engel. Yes, I've got an Engel. There's a story behind why I bought Engel and nothing else. I haven't just got one. I've actually got two Engels on board, which I'm going to put in there. One will be a fridge and a freezer, or both fridges, or we'll work it out as we go. When I put the Engels in, I'll explain why I had to go with Engel and I couldn't use something else. However, I'm very happy with the choice I made at the end of the day. Where did you buy Tiare, and do you think... No, I'll answer that one first. Where did you buy Tiare? We bought her in Aotearoa in Thailand. So yeah, we bought her in Aotearoa in Thailand. She was 5 years old when I bought her. And yeah, I'll explain more about that in another video of why and how we bought Tiare. But yeah, we bought her in Aotearoa in Thailand in 2010. Do you think a Wharram would be suitable for cool weather cruising? Well, that depends. Do you like cool weather cruising? Me personally, I don't think she'd be very suitable for long-term cold weather voyaging. I'm quite happy to stick between the tropics. That's Cancer and Capricorn. That's 30 degrees south, 30 degrees north. That's my sweet spot for cruising, mainly because the weather's warmer. I'm not a cold weather person, so for me, do I think Tiare is suitable for cold weather cruising? For me, the answer is no. But you know, that's just because I don't like cold weather. I know people who do like cold weather and would have no problem with it. Dave Ridley says and asks, "Hi Daniel, what's happening in Japan?" Well, quite a lot's happening in Japan. That's why I'm not uploading as much as I should be. I've got kids, they're all doing different things, they all need my input and help. We've just moved apartment, which is a long drawn out process. If anyone's moved house to a new place, it just takes forever. So yeah, I'm slowly getting there, and I should be, by the time this video is up, I should be full-time on Tiare. I'm really hoping so anyway. When's the next video? Well, the next video is now the one you're watching from when you asked this, and the next one will hopefully be a week after now. I'm not holding... Don't hold my breath, don't hold your breath, we'll see what happens. And how is Paul? Well, Paul's really well, thanks. Everything seems to have recovered, he's doing well. So thanks for asking, much appreciated. Right, John Harrison from before is asking again, and he says, any plans on coming over to the Caribbean, Miami, when you start traveling again? Well, like I said, I have lots of plans. I would, after I've done my Japan thing, I really do want to get over to Americas. I want to do the Caribbean. I actually want to do the ICW. That would be a real thrill for me. I don't know why. It's just something I've had on for years and years and years. I want to sail. I want to motor up the ICW. I think Tiare has been designed to handle a lot of those bridges without demasting, but I also know that, yeah. Anyway, we'll look into that in the years to come. So yes, John, I would love to come to Caribbean, Miami. In fact, I was just talking to Lowell, and he's looking at going over to the Annapolis boat show. I would love to come over there, but my funding I just can't afford. It's the airfares I can't afford, so probably not. Maybe next year. We'll see what happens. But anyway, that's all the questions I've got at the moment. So thanks so much. If you've watched this far, you're a legend, you're a champion. Thank you so much. If you haven't, I don't mind, that's fine. Thanks for clicking on here anyway, much appreciated. If you do have any questions about anything related to Wharrams, boating, Japan, me, life in general, send the question through. I will do my best to answer them. Anyway, thanks so much. We'll catch you later, and hopefully we'll see you back here. Cheers guys.